Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing live show number 451. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us live. As always, we appreciate everyone that is in very odd time zones being able to watch us as they do. And for those of you who in different time zones may wish to catch it at a more reasonable hour, we do recast our live show on all of the channels that we do at 11:30 a.m. Wednesday mornings, Sydney, Australian time for our APAC friends, and for 11:30 a.m. London time for our EU and Mideast friends, which will be my time zone here in just a couple of weeks as I travel over to the EU for a few months. And so with that, we will have some interesting conversations while we're over there, like we did last year. Anywho's, for all of you that are watching us live on Facebook, on the multiple pages from there, thank you so much. YouTube on the multiple channels from there, thank you so much. From the X and from LinkedIn, and just cool stuff. If you're watching us on Twitch, great gaming consoles. And of course, as always, our TV station, TV channel, Hospitality Marketing Channel, the Hospitality Channel. That you can catch on your Roku TV, Amazon TV, Google TV, Apple TV, smart TVs in general. Just look for the Hospitality Channel. The live show is always on the free side there. So with that we've made accolades to everybody that's watching us, let's get to what we're going to be talking about today. Not so much of an axe to grind, but as an optics to change. We've existed in a world where ROI is the first conversation or question that comes from our lips whenever presented with anything that involves the expenditure of funding towards a potential revenue growth is how much are we going to get from it? That first optic changes literally the rainbow of colors afterwards as to what we see once that question has been answered. So my topic today is production, not purpose, the flaw in today's tracking. We are so centric, as any business should be and rightfully deserves, to be focused on what we produce from our efforts, from a very, very clear financial perspective. No business in a capitalist market can be successful if they can't measure and succeed in making more from what they spend as an ROI, return on investment. I gave X dollars, I get Y return. The variance between X and Y is my margin of success. And therefore, my ROI is calculated from the ratio of my cost to my revenue being generated. However, in this very dynamic world of how things are being done these days and how things have to be looked at these days, putting everything first through the measurement of ROI will create failures as to what can be produced strategically. Now, I say this from the idea that we have great examples in the history of capitalism, commercialism, as to these abilities. One of the more standout ones would be Apple. Back when the iPhone came out and the iPod was a huge thing. If you didn't have an iPod, oh my gosh. iPods, of course, took over the cassette tapes and the Walkmans and so forth at the time. iPods were the way that you could now play music when you wanted and so forth and so on. And they even had shows and videos, and, you're trying to squeeze in a little video into a little dinky 1.5-inch screen and watch it. I remember I was feeling so cool on a plane where I was watching a movie that I chose to watch because I downloaded it on my iPod, one of the big ones, the spinning hard drive, that I could stare at and watch my own movie. Wow. Nowadays we'd be looking at not even a chance to we do that. But back then that was something. So Apple cannibalized their number one product by dedicating what they were doing with the iPhone. They transitioned all of the success of what the iPod was doing and put it into the phone. So they had two products that did the same thing. The phone had a longer road and a longer path of productivity and growth and other things that could be added. We know it now to be true, cameras and everything else. And the iPod was limited. So all of a sudden, Apple's revenue from one product, allergy season, gotta love it, to feed its other, which also opened up the door for other products that may have been similar to iPhones to potentially grasp some of the business from the iPod to them. Unfortunately, they couldn't. They didn't realize the opportunity was there. And then when they did try to generate their own versions of it, by then at that point, Apple had resecured its foothold as to what the iPod's audience was, and now was on the iPhone. Why am I bringing all this up? Because if you were to look at it from the optic only first of ROI, a huge battle must have gone on internally as to why would we ever do this to ourselves? Why would we take our number one, our cash cow? We're selling them like hotcakes. The phone is a new thing. It's being critically bashed because it's a brick on the side of a face and da 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 da. Why would we ever cut our wrists, so to speak, metaphorically, on the iPad to dedicate ourselves to a product that isn't there yet, that isn't doing what you think it's going to do? Just transferring what it can do over to it doesn't mean it's going to just immediately replace it and we don't lose anything. We're going to lose things because not everybody's having fun. They don't want to buy a phone. They're happy with their other phone to get what the iPod does. Yeah, sure. That probably was and probably more robust conversations than that happened. The idea was they stopped looking. I wasn't in the room, as Hamilton would say. I want to be in the room. They stopped and decided that if they took ROI out of it, in the sense of what we spent right now and what we made right now, and looked at the longer path of what are we doing for the growth of our company, the expansion of what we're capable of doing, that we're basically switching horses like the Pony Express did. When we got tired, you hopped on the fresh one. This product had an end life that was shorter than the life of what the iPhone is and was and now it could have been. For that reason, they decided to make the change. Not a lot of companies have that vision. We applaud Apple, and it obviously shows as being one of the biggest companies in the world in the sense of value proposition, or value, I should say. Our why, if it's the first and only question that has to get answered before another question gets asked and answered, culls out such a large portion of your options as to what you can do for yourself in a beneficial way. And let's just take social as a good channel of opportunity for marketing. If you look at social from the purity of ROI, it's terrible. And it is always a struggle to justify and convince the powers that be that have the control over the funding to fund campaigns in social. The part that has kept it from the chopping block so many times is the common sense conversation. We can't not be there because our customers, our guests are there. We have to have a presence. So even though you don't see the value in an ROI perspective of us doing this, we need to invest enough at least to maintain a presence. Tell me this isn't a conversation, if you've been in those conversations, that it happens. It's a terrible direct channel. Its ROI is at best hard to calculate. And all the social platforms have done their best to try to convince everyone through their metrics and data that they are a valid source. And in some cases, especially when it comes to retail and so forth, there is a stronger direct channel correlation to this. I'm speaking specifically of our industry, hospitality, is a very hard correlation because social is not always and not persistently a direct channel conversion. What do I mean by direct channel conversion? They go to social, they see us, they like us, they click and buy something from what we offered in social. That conversion value. And that goes back to what we've talked about many, many times of how we track things. First click, last click, anything in between, time decay, frequency, so forth and so on. That attribution model really determines the success value of how people perceive social media as a channel in its contribution value. Now, obviously, and we've talked a lot, that last show is no exception to the GA4. And we know that through data measurement of what Google is capable of doing, there is now a more reasonable perspective as to the value of social as its attribution value is now calculated based on all that Google knows about how often social was engaged with related to a conversion, frequency, how soon and how close to the end and the beginning and everything else. And all that's correlated into a value proposition that says social is worth now this number compared to what we just saw as last click attribution, which was our mainstay, that said not a lot of people come from social and buying stuff. So it's hard to put money at something that you can't see the result in a positive way from. Now with the attribution models from GA4 and Google, we can see at least a better perspective. We have a stronger point to make about social. So it's beginning to redeem itself from the eyes of the ROI people. And please don't think that ROI is an important question. And it's somewhere in the context of conversations, it should always be asked. At least, if anything, to understand what that number is, to know whether or not that is a consideration of how hard we effort into this or how long we keep trying to drag the dead horse, so to speak. There is a need to understand what the ROI potential of this is. But I'm proposing to everyone in our talk today that um, ROI can be a calculation that is stretched, that is perceived from multiple aspects, not a single transaction. That's the myopic view that I think that we are stuck with, is that we are stuck on the first answer to our first question, and that is, what is the ROI? By giving you this money, how much money are you going to give me back from this? And it's funny, I have an analogy that I use a lot for another reason, but if you sit by the river long enough, the body of your enemy will float by. It's a Chinese proverb. Anyways, um, we often don't add time into the equation to what we look at. We look at an immediate transaction. We're a very now kind of society. I spend, I get. That's what I should. I buy something, the product's in my hand. 2-day delivery, or right at the store, grab it. I didn't even want to wait for the 2-day delivery. I want to go to the store and buy it. We're very in immediate gratification. ROI fits into that mold for us in the way we've handled it all these years. Its source of it is profound because it's one of the few metrics that is a mainstay throughout the continuity of our industry. If we build or repair things, if we invest in marketing, if we invest in teams and people and training and so forth, we try to figure out how it benefited our revenue, which is the source of our business model. We spend less than we make so that we have a margin of success that we can award ourselves. Not here to discuss economics or capitalism, just that's how our society works for this right now. With that, a lot of things don't pass the first cut. When you look at strategies that involve a linear progression of engagement, ROI begins to not look the same. It's like you're looking at quantum compared to physical. The rules bend because ROI isn't as immediate and intrinsic to the first conversion or the first transaction or the first engagement or the first launch. It sometimes takes time and cultivation. And even then, it is an indirect contribution, not a direct contribution, to the success of the campaign's overall perspective. Now, some organizations, I will give them credit, have this ability to understand that social is an aspect that augments the value of what they're doing in other channels to generate the revenue that those channels produce. They understand the relationship that we've talked about many times, that social is like an amplifier to an electric guitar. The guitar sounds terrible without it. It sounds awesome with it. That it amplifies those things, makes the other channels capable of higher successes. All of those things are true. And I, again, applaud companies that understand that perspective. But they're still tethered with the persistency of equating that to an ROI understanding. Yes, we know it contributes. So we have to take some of the value proposition of the other channels and apply it to our social because they helped it, but they didn't get the benefit of the direct acknowledgement of their success of the conversion. That's true. And we have plenty of models, plenty of dashboards, plenty of mathematical calculations that allow for this to happen. And I'm not disputing those as being not completely valid. They are completely valid. But the part that I'm trying to talk about today is the mind shift of always having to hold ourselves to answering the forever question of ROI. There are some strategies that, sorry, it's not supposed to be a dramatic pause. There are some strategies that are intrinsic to the success of what you've converted, but have a value that is undefined, but hopefully impactful in the future. Let me give a case of an example and tell me if so you buy a retail product, we put in something a little more simplistic of a way of relationship. You bought a retail product and it comes in one of those blister packs, the kind that you can never get out no matter how much you try, and you end up beating with a hammer to try to cut, or scissors or something to kind of cut a piece of it out, and you end up slicing your own finger because the plastic's so hard and it's so glued together and everything else like that, right? It's frustrating. The product itself may be fine, but the angst of getting to it diminishes its value. mentally. Just like, okay. Compared to when you buy, going back to Apple as an example, and they were the first to do this, the packaging you put in the product. You see it on social media, the reveal, the openings. Somebody buys a product and they turn the camera on, and literally they're showing themselves opening up the package and laying out the pieces as to what's in the box. Like, woo! And we all watch them. Why? Because we want to know what we're going to buy if we buy it. What's it look like? How's it? If you look at the boxes that you get your Apple stuff in, they're nice. They're well portioned. They're durable. They're hard cardboard. I remember when I bought my first iPhone, I think I used the box from it as a change box because it was just such a durable little box. The packaging it conformed and fits, and you could tell that it was well designed and thought out. And like Apple products, you pull the little arrow tab, and the plastic magically pops open and unfolds from what it was protecting, and so forth. And it gives you this sense of quality from buying it. The product may be a piece of crap. And I'm not saying Apple. I'm just saying we now see it everywhere. You buy something, and it comes in a nice packaging, and the product is like, wow, this is kind of flimsy looking, or not at the quality that the packaging actually denotes a better quality than the product itself. And tell me you haven't had that happen. And you're sitting there going, packaging is nice. They did a good job of that, but this thing it feels cheap. That's an intrinsic value that is not ROI based. And what do I mean by that? Well, I've already bought the product. So putting it in a fancy box is not really doing anything more other than the affirmational goodwill of saying that this is something worthy of a quality packaging for you. So then you say, well, what's the packaging for if it isn't to make you feel good? Well, it is to make you feel good, but it's more important that you see it as how you refer people. You tell people, I bought that thing. Yeah, nice product. Why did I say it's a nice product? I may not have used the product enough to know that it's a nice product, but the packaging short-circuited that and made me feel like it was already a nice product simply by the way I received it. Well, that's one thing. The other is future repurchase from the same vendor or the same product maker. Last time I bought something from them, it felt good. It was good quality. The packaging was good. I mean, I don't say that mentally in my mind, but as a marketer, I do. Packaging, made me feel like this was something that because you worry in these days that when you buy something, is it good or is it bad? You can't tell necessarily at face value. There's a lot of variations that are very similar for the purpose that if someone can sell it, I can sell it maybe differently, maybe cheaper. And because of that, then you get it and you realize it is cheaper. You buy a knockoff charger and the thing glows like a hot coal because it's a cheap product and the wiring in it is not durable enough to hold the electricity, and it's a cheaper, and it dies because it looks like the product that it looks like, but it's more cheaply made, which is why you bought it cheaper. It reminds me when I was in China, a few times when you go to buy things and you're looking, and this is where everything, most of the electronics stuff is being produced, and you had choices. You had the cheap knockoff, which was cheap because it was very cheap to buy. You had the less than cheap knockoff, which was better quality than the cheap knockoff, but not near the quality of the original product. And then you had the absolute knockoff that was literally the product with the label not on it because they're all made there. And so the manufacturer can sell as and so forth and so on. And the prices were commensurate and the product quality was commensurate. They may have looked the same, but all the product variations, I've actually bought a cheap thing versus the complete knockoff and I already had the original brand one of it. And night and day. Durability, the cheap one died shortly after buying it. The exact knockoff still ran as good and as long as the original one with the brand logo on it. So I imagine the middle one would have had something in between of that. So this idea of investing in wrapping, going back to this point, is about my ability to share my experience with others. We see it on the videos all the time. To denote the quality of what they had purchased, a reaffirmation of that makes them feel good because that is a requirement. Less returns, so forth and so on, logistics. But it also means that I have a propensity to probably buy more products from them in the future because I feel like they're a quality company. That affirmation had been hurdled with the packaging. Simple thing is that. And then it also allows me to feel good about recommending it because I feel that the person I recommend it to, should they buy it, will feel the same way that I felt when I got the packaging and the product. This is a good thing. This seems to be a good thing. Yeah, I like this. The packaging cost sometimes outweighs the value of the product itself. And then this is, I know for a fact from having been in China and talking to him about that Sometimes the packaging costs them more to actually produce and have and use than the product that they're selling that's in it, for the sole purpose that they're not gauging the single transaction as they are on the longevity, adding time to their equation, the repetitive purchase from the single purchase person and the influence that they have on other purchasers. They realize that there is a longer discussion than the single transaction and the single accomplishment of doing so. That is what we tend to miss in our market strategies. We are looking at affirmational production. You gave me a marketing budget of this. I put it into Google Ads. Google Ads, I spent that much money, made that much money according to my analytics. Ta-da! I'm a hero. Oftentimes we use strange metrics like ROAS, which is only good for marketers. We've had those discussions because you should have more common KPIs between your revenue management team, operations team, and marketing team, so that even though I have a ROAS of 20 to 1, the total contribution top line revenue is insufficient to the goal. Great ROAS, not enough production, because I can have ad campaigns rock, but they produce so little from it. But I have a great ROAS to brag about, which is, again, when you look at how agencies refer to themselves in their reporting and reviews, look at the numbers that count, not just the numbers that they're presenting. Remember, 84% of all statistics are made up on the spot by people that want to use them to their benefit. Anyways, the idea is that if you add time into your perspective of your marketing strategy, you realize that by contributing in certain things, placing content in certain ways, instigating storylines in social, instigating content on websites, introducing things that have no immediate return on investment, no immediate transaction, no immediate direct channel value proposition of what you're doing, okay, inherently will produce if done strategically well. And I sound that, staccato word by word because it has to be thought in a process, not a transaction. If everything is based about immediate production, you are losing the opportunities of what you can put into a process. I've mentioned this many times before, but I'll mention it again. There's a platform that I use to create these workflows. One of the best ones I have worked with is called Giru. There are others. There's Funnel View, and a couple others that do this. And what this basically does is that it allows you to deconstruct your engagements with your guests on the strategies and platforms you're using. Simple example for us, we will take an easy one that more people are familiar with, which is email workflow. We've talked about this before. We'll talk it again. I send out an email. There is, let's just say it's a newsletter because most people, that seems to be the blunted instrument that they mostly use. I'm not going to get into the dynamics of other stuff. Just they send out a newsletter. There are 4 offers on this newsletter because gosh knows we throw the kitchen sink in our newsletters. There may be a military offer, discount for military veterans and first responders, police, whatever. There is a family offer. There's a event offer that's going on. And then there's a last minute deal offer that's on there. Okay. And it gets sent out to an aggregated database because we're just going to start and say we have a big pile of email addresses. It gets sent out. The first hurdle that you break out in your workflow is you take the number of people. Say you have 10,000 people. And we sent this email out to 10,000 people that's on our email list. Let's say they're previous guests, whatever. We have the emails. There are our data. Please remember, data is. We're going to have a little quick discussion at the end of the show today about some things are in the mix today with data and legalities. So you have this data. It's 10,000 people. You send it out to them. The first hurdle that you're looking at is, did they open? Didn't they open? First trigger. 10,000 people hits this first wall. Normal email, let's just say safely, 20% of them opened it. So 2,000 people opened it. Okay, so 2,000 people. Yeah, now you have a funnel, and 2,000 people branched up to here. Okay, we'll deal with them in just a second. 8,000 did not. So you're looking at this funnel, email, newsletter, boom, splits, open, non-open. The non-open ones, you decide what you want to do with those. We're going to wait 3 days, and we're going to resend it with this new subject line. Create one variable, AB variable. Okay, we're going to change the subject line. It's going to still say the same thing, but just in a different way. Maybe we caught them at the wrong time, wrong day. Maybe they were doing something that they didn't get the email. Whatever it is, okay, we're going to send it back out to them. What happens when we send it back out to them 3 days later? Same wall that we had the first news email. Those that opened it, those that didn't. Let's say, okay, that 10% of them did open it. So 800. Okay. So now you have 7,200 that didn't. What do you do with them? Well, one of the easier first things is we're going to send them a different email. Apparently, what we're talking about or how we're referring to ourselves is not resonating. So let's send out a different email about something that's not anything that's been in our newsletters. Let's talk about our seasonal offer, or maybe we want to send them a enter to win thing, or whatever they want, something different. So we send out to 7,200 people that email. Same wall hits there. How many opened, didn't open? Let's say 10% of those people open. So now we have 720 people that open. We now have 6,480 people that didn't. I remember that was right. Anyway, we're going to leave that dead for that moment because we keep seeing the splinter. We're doing the same things different ways to a certain point. Okay. Now let's go back up the funnel to the first group of people that we sent the first newsletter for. That 10%, 2,000 of them opened it. Great. Of those that opened it, did they click on anything? Well, out of the 2,000 people, 1,000 did. Okay. So now we have 1,000 people that opened it, but they didn't do anything. What do we want to do? Well, we want to send them an email that was maybe like the one that was different before, enter to win or something like this. Obviously, what we had didn't engage them. Nothing that we offered was there. So it's a very easy one in the sense of, okay, hey, looked at your offers. None of that really hits me. No. Okay, click out. But they opened it. Okay, so we send them now the other new email like we sent the other ones down the other path that was something totally different. Enter to win, or thank you so much, or here's a survey, or here's something about seasons, or whatever. And that 1,000 people, maybe 500 of them opened up the email again. Okay, so you see this splintering that's going on. So let's go back up the funnel. Let's go to the 1,000 people that when they first got the first newsletter email, they opened it and they clicked on something. Great. What did they click on? Well, we had certain options. We had the 4 offers. We have our website link always. Terrible to say it would be an unsubscribe. Okay. But those are the options. So now that gets splintered as to what they engaged with. Now, from there, if they engaged on it, the first next question is, did it convert? And only a portion of them are going to convert, and there's going to be a portion that doesn't convert. If you cannot guess this already, this workflow is about gapping the parts that don't engage and convert. Your first issue is getting the people that are engaged to convert, and your other issue is to re-engage or to engage those that didn't convert or didn't engage at all, and see if there's a way to do this. So following down the funnel of the people that on the original newsletter didn't open it, we sent it a second time, they didn't open it, sent it a third one differently, they didn't open it. Guess what? Emails may not be it. You're challenging the entire funnel of what the CRM is doing. This is not talking to them. Strangely enough, most people give up and they just keep them in the list and they keep banging them, become zombie lists because they never really do anything. They never open, they never engage, we don't even know, we might have a validator software that validates emails as being real, but that doesn't mean that they use them. It just means that it isn't a dead account. And people will be more interested about talking about, I have a 10,000 email list. Yeah, but you get 6,000 of them that never have engaged with you. They're dead. They're zombies. There's nothing going on. So going to the same thing, you've tried email, sending them 3 different things from Tuesday. Nothing's happening. Change channel. Let's take those people and make that an engagement with another channel. Perhaps it will resonate in a channel that they're engaged with. One of the first softest ones to look at is social. Paid ads by nature, by targeting, means that it has to be resonating with a person when they see the ad. If you're not taking a vacation, you're not interested in vacation offers per se, especially short-term deals, because it's not on your event horizon of what you're planning for. However, if you're planning a future time, like summers or falls or things like this ahead of your time schedule, and something comes up that refers to that kind of stuff, you might engage it. We are human beings. We do these kind of things, and it's not linear in their process, but we have to plan linear in our engagements. So let's shift the unengaged list from this venture that we're doing into social media. Let's take context of what something we wanted to talk about from our emails that they didn't even bother to look at since it's fresh and new. They've never seen it. And let's go over and put it in social media as a content that we have this thing going on and we have this offer going related to it and so forth and so on, or we might craft it differently depending upon how far out this offer is valid for or being applied to, that we simply talk about all the reasons why coming to our destination would be good, and we don't try to hard hit them with an offer. The availability is there by the landing page we send them to, the call to actions on that landing page, not on the blinky light on your post saying, hey, and by the way, we have this offer, buy now, buy now. The social is supposed to bring them to the place that explains better for them to make a good choice. So anyways, because that will keep your cancellation rates down, by the way, because if people go over and just book and bank thing, they go back later and cancel it if it's not something they're interested in. That's where you get your cancellation percentage increases, is because you're blanking the call to action too early in the engagement. Another story, another show. Anyhow, if this doesn't work, maybe another channel. Maybe from a social perspective, you change it to a content-only perspective that you may put with other means and mediums, blog post, conversation, or something. Engage it with other channels that they may be on that they're not engaging you with. The idea is this: the workflow of what you're doing is a progressive engagement conversation that takes time. If you look at all of this in an ROI perspective, you're only looking at the first action. 2,000 people out of 10 opened it. 1,000 people actually engaged on something. 500 of those people clicked into seeing something. Of the 500 people, 50 of them actually booked something. My value of whatever they booked compared to the cost of me sending the email is the ROI that everybody looks at, beats their chest. Look at how good I am. It only cost us $150 to send the email out with our service program, and we made $10,000. Yes. And they ignore all of the other stuff that I just took time to explain to you for, and you took time to listen to. All of those other potential engagements, all those other avenues of opportunity, all those other places that we leaked engagement, that we didn't cultivate into another means of communication that did convert, fractionally at best, but still converted, was lost because all we were fixated on was the initial value of what we spent versus what we got from the initial engagement. That blinder perspective of production, okay, over process, or purpose, I should say, not process, but purpose, is profoundly blinding our optics as to our true ability to do more for ourselves. I have yet to come across a company that has this mapped out, that has their strategies based on a progression of engagements, based on non-engagements and engagements, that knows and has answers to what do we do when they do engage, and what do we measure, and how do we re-engage, and what do we do to engage with that hasn't engaged, and how do we continue that process to a point that you just have to admit that these people, if even if they still exist, in that are just not engaged. Now, I say that with the caveat that you may have been doing this as a spring campaign or a March campaign or a first week of March campaign or anything like this. It also is about timing. Remember, time is relative on all things. This just not might be the time that these people have any interest in talking to you. They're nose down working, or they already have pre-plans. There's no reason for them to be distracted with what you're talking about or engaged with anything that you're offering them. Doesn't mean that they're totally gone. I would say after a 12-month process of trying to get this group, that you keep this zombie group, I call them the zombie file, and it slowly gets eroded away, but there gets to be a point where there's just a list of people that throughout your progression of the year, no matter what you did, no matter how you said, no matter where you kind of communicate with them on any channel, they just don't do anything. Get rid of the list. It's not worth thinking. It's not worth the bragging rights. And we've gotten rid of some monster lists because a lot of times the data is over years of stuff. And those emails, even though they may still, again, through the authenticator, be alive, they might be long since forgotten. I have email lists, email addresses that I use that I'm like, oh, Yahoo, yeah, I had a Yahoo account, wow, and it's still shown as alive, but I haven't looked at that thing in years. That's where these people come from sometimes. So, or they might just be forwarding emails. And then, as you know now with new softwares and so forth, there's a lot of emails that Apple offers you a mask email when you sign up for something on Safari. You may have that as email list. Well, that referral email list, they might have purged it off of their site, saying, I don't want anything from these things anymore. And you're still sending it to a list. Now, not always, I mean, sometimes your authenticators will catch this, but sometimes they don't. But the idea is let the list go. If you've tried it over 12 months in every flavor of form and every channel of opportunity you can and every message variation that you can offer, you've exhausted your chances. These people do not, if they're still real, want to engage with you. This progression of time, rather than just the ROI of the first transaction, the first engagement, the first success, is what we are blinding ourselves to as to the potential of our marketing strategies. Because if you elongate the time that you're doing things in a way that's progressive, wrap up your multi-channel engagements the way they're actually truly intertwined. I see something on a website display ad that's reaffirmed in a social. It's discovered in my education process of relevancy. I see it now because I engaged with it in a retargeting method. The retargeting method goes to some direct channel. I go over and look at information that's reaffirmed. I have a progression of conversation that isn't, I'm not seeing the same ad every time I touch it, but a progressive means of an ad because they know it's me. And so they've already exposed me to ad one. They've already exposed me to ad two. I'm now up talking about ad three. It's getting a little bit more precise, a little bit more granular as to my engagement level types, that targeting process, so that now I feel like I am getting educated through exposure to whether or not you're a viable option for me to consider. That progression of messages, that progression of engagement, the multiplicity of the channels, all requires time. All of those aspects that you're doing and the channels that you're spending it on do not have a direct correlation of ROI as you do so. And so anybody looking first and only, which is another condition of the ROI problem, will dismiss the first effort as being a lost effort because it didn't produce enough for it to be warranted to go to the next step. I will tell you this from what I do for work. I love companies that do that because I steal their business. I pick up where they didn't go. I go where they didn't get that far to. I see the things that if they just went the next step, if they just followed the process, if they did more than the single thing, they would have gotten the business I took from them. It is persistent, it is consistent, and there is no exception to that process. I can see what people do and don't do from what our competitors do. And then you take that information and just pick up the ball and continue the dialogue. Because at the end of the day, you're a competitor of them and you see where they didn't go through. Also, too, looking at the people that weren't happy with them. Those are easy people to convert over to you. They had a reason to be in your market. They didn't like their experience with others. Why aren't you cultivating that potential for them? These are things that have hard ROI answers for people that only think about ROI. If you're only thinking if I spent and I got, and if I didn't get, I'm not going to spend again, then you miss these opportunities. You leave money on the table, metaphorically, by not following all the engagements that you didn't have and continue to try for. This is what your marketing team is built for, not just single ad campaign successes, not just single campaign runs. Another thing I see persistently, agencies will set up ad campaigns. Everybody's happy. Look at all these variations. We're so cool. We did everything we told you. And then they leave it to run itself into the ground to death. That as long as the number looks somewhat good, or whatever number they want to refer to that looks good, you keep paying your monthly bill until all of a sudden you're like, well, the contribution value of this is just not there. I know we're doing ad campaigns. I know we're doing and we have our meetings every once a month to look back at what we did. And they keep telling us the numbers are okay, but I'm not seeing the production. It's because the ad campaigns have never changed since the first day you started. Tell me you're still advertising the same 3 months after. You're not. You're a whole different hotel 3 months after. You have different people walking in your door. Now, obviously, certain hotels have a more consistent pattern of persona demographics and people that come into their hotel. If they're a business hotel or if they're a conference hotel or whatever have you, you have the same genre of types of people that are coming in. But you know that seasonality, there are times where you have influxes of different people coming through, different people that are contributing to your monthly bottom line. You're not targeting them. That's the issue of not following through. That's the issue of being blinded by ROI and making everything have to jump that first hurdle of, is it valuable enough to continue to spend money in after money's been spent? I think I've harbored that a lot today. We'll leave it at that. I did want to add to the fact that we're going into transitions now. You're beginning to see more and more articles pop up, sadly written by AI, by agencies that don't have either the creative talent internally or the lazy factor of just having AI to write something for them on third-party cookie degradation. Google has made it clear they started this month with the degrading of keeping track of third-party cookies. They're the last holdout to this. Everybody else and their brother has already done this, browser-wise. They're not telling you what progression of percentages are getting nullified as to third-party cookies, but we know it's going to go on according to the metrics of their revenue potential. They're not going to cut their nose off to spite their face. They're going to allow the opportunity of progression so that they don't hit their bottom line or their top line growth. That being said, it's going to happen faster and faster, more and more. You're going to find more organizations that relied upon their ability to gather data get blinded. That's why you're getting an onslaught of people asking for new updates to their tracking to your website. By putting their tracking on your website, that makes them a first party person, which means they can gather data from your site. So instead of them relying upon other people's cookies that they can get data from, that's going away. They want their tracking on your website so that they can get the data that they've been getting, so they can continue offering it the way they've been offering it to others. We see it persistently. Organizations that offer you marketing strategies based on data and knowledge that they have of people that are connected to them. You are the product for them. And I might find it always amazing that they charge you to do your marketing, yet they take your data so that they can sell it to others to market, sell it to them to market as well. Be careful of this. There is a give and a take. Not everybody's bad, but then by the same token, you have to have the value in the relationship as well. If you're willing to share your data with them, be very clear on what data that you're allowing them to get. Just don't take their cookie and put it on, their pixel and put it on your tracking. Especially when you start seeing asterisks in the more hidden Java code that says, this Java will run. What does it run? What does it look for? You'll be surprised at what they steal. They will literally take all the data that they can, your transactions and anything else, not the personal information data. That's against the law. But they will take everything else that they can by just having their cookie put onto your website. And they'll use that data to market other people, just like they're using other people's data to market you. So I'd be very defined as to what exactly they're tracking. I would sincerely look at their privacy and data storage possibilities, because you forget, if there's a data breach of theirs and you're in collusion with them and they've signed off that they're not responsible for those types of things, your first line of fire, they're not. They'll still get sucked into the vortex of it all, but you will have to be accountable to your guests as to why their data was made available through somebody else that you endorsed in a way that was compromising their privacy. And it's dangerous territory to be in these days. There's a lot of lawyers out there that are just looking for class action stuff and things to chase and all that other stuff that they get to make money off of. It reminds me a lot of the days back when the first ADA compliance of, getting the pool lift chairs and so forth. And we had lawyers coming into hotels banging around in wheelchairs that they didn't deserve to sit in because they weren't disabled, but they wanted to prove their points so they could sue the hotel that if they didn't pay the lawyer to leave them alone, blood money, then they would sue them for much more money. Happened a lot. Getty, when they bought all the pictures and so forth from other places, and then sent you those notices saying you've been illegally using pictures that they own and you owe them a shoot ton of money unless you pay this small settlement fee. They're going to chase you for a very large fee. We're in that same world again. They come out of the woodwork. So be mindful of your data. Be mindful of who you give permission to get your data, and be mindful of their policies of how they handle your data. It's critical components. Anyways, that's the points I wanted to make today. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as to the blinding of focusing first on production ROI over the purpose of what you're doing. And that's a flaw in our current strategies. And take it to heart and reevaluate some of the things you're doing and see whether or not there's other ways. Start small, simple A/B testing. Take other campaigns that you've dismissed as single efforts and see if you can stretch them. What did we do with the people that didn't engage with us? Start with that first question and see whether you can make a progression of kind of engagement with that. That platform I was talking about, Gira, we're going to talk a little bit more about it in the podcast today again, because it's such a good tool. But you assign value as to, the offers that you're making, or the things that what do they produce? Your daily rate versus your length of stay. That's your value of transaction, and how many transactions your conversion comes out of each of these. So you can assign dollar values of all the channels that you're creating of people that engaged, and if they did convert, fractionally the numbers that did, it generates the revenues, and you create this matrix of all these variations of how you're engaging in the engaged and engaging the non-engaged. But they now assign values, and it tallies up as it goes on, and you can actually, without running the campaigns, see what the potential, based on historical conversions and your efforts and the audience sizes that you're looking at, what the potential of the revenue would be without having to spend $1 to find out. It's a pretty cool tool. Anyways, with that, my name is Lauren Gray. Thank you for the privilege of your time. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for listening to me live on really amazing time zones. And for those of you that hear our recast on Wednesday, no matter where in the world you are, thank you for doing for that. We also, Hospitality Radio, our podcast. We are in 209 countries with our TV station. Our audio podcast, we translate into 11 languages. We're in 44 countries with our podcast, 39 platforms for it. We are on the radio station. We are in 36 countries. 24-hour. It's a radio station that has several different great podcasts. I'd like to think mine is one of them, but there's some other great podcasts from other great people from the industry on there. If you're a hospitality marketer, want to join our club, Hospitality Marketing Club, go to hospitalitymarketing.club. Put your email in, that sends you a quiz. You pass the quiz, showing that you are an active hospitality marketer, and we bring you into our club, which is not on social media platforms. It's our own closed door network. Great peer group, be able to ask intelligent questions, listen from intelligent people. I'm not the others. And here, real world solutions, we do live Q&As and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Anyways, again, thank you for the privilege of your time. And we look forward to talking to you all next week.